Today we're going to be looking at multiplying with mixed numbers. The first problem we're going to look at is 2 1/8 times 6 2/3. Before we can go very far, we must first convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions. We do that by multiplying the denominator times the whole number and then adding the numerator. 2 1/8 would then become 17/8. 6 2/3 would become 20/3. Before we go any further, we want to see if we can cancel and make our problem a little bit easier for us. We do that by looking to see if any numerator and denominator have a factor in common. In this case, the 8 and the 20 share a factor of 4. So we would mark out both of them and think, how many times can 4 go into 8? How many times can 4 go into 20? And we have our new fractions. We can rewrite 17/2 times 5/3. Now, should there have been another pair of numerators and denominators that had a common factor, we could have simplified again, but in this case, we're done at this point. Now, when we go to multiply, we see here that 2 times 3, that one's easy. 17 times 5, you might not know that one in your head, so it's okay to go over to the side and work out a little bit of scratch to find out that it is 85/6. Okay, well now we have an answer, but it's certainly not in simplest form. The numerator is much larger than the denominator, meaning we have an improper fraction and we now need to reduce it back into a mixed number. We do that by dividing. Now you can ask yourself, how many times can 6 go into 85? Or you can do the division. Remember we've said that Nancy rides the donkey is a way to remember that numerator goes on top of denominator? When we're setting up our multiplication problem, we want to remember Nancy and her donkey. Nancy belongs inside of the house. We would not want to welcome a donkey inside the house, so the donkey must stay outside. Now we begin. We're going to be following a procedure, which we remember by DMSB. An easy way to remember this is dead mice smell bad. What these letters in fact stand for, however, are divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, or bring up. We look first at the 6 and ask ourselves, how many times can 6 go into 8? We ignore the 5 for right now. We'll come back to that in a minute. How many times can 6 go into 8? 1 time. We get a check. Now we must multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. Check. S stands for subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. Check. B stands for bring down. I go next door and bring down the 5. I no longer have a 2 here. I now have a 25. You must look at the whole number now. So we've gone through our whole checklist, so we go back to the beginning again. We ask ourselves, how many times can 6 go into 25? 4. We write the 4 on top and give ourselves a check. M means multiply. 4 times 6 is 24. Notice I did not do 14 times 6. We just did 4 times 6, the one number we just wrote. Okay, so we multiplied. We get a check mark now. Next on our list is to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. That's 0. Check. bring down, oh, I have nothing else to bring down, which means I get to bring this up. And I put it as a numerator in a fraction that has the same denominator as our original number. So that original denominator, which was 6, is going to come back here. So 2 1/8 times 6 2/3 equals 14 1/6. Okay, let's try another one. The area of a rectangle is found using the formula area equals length times width. We also mark that A equals cursive L times W. If rectangle A has a length of 6 inches and a width of 5 1/2 inches, what is rectangle A's area? Well, we pull the numbers from this problem. We have 6 and 5 1/2. And we know because of the formula that we multiply them together. The first step, we convert into fractions. 6 is 6 wholes, so we must make it 6 over 1. 5 1/2, we do what we've always been doing. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And we're ready to go from here. We just multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. We do not need to find common denominators when we multiply. When we multiply across, we end up with 66 over 2. 66 halves. Now you may know that when you divide by 2, you're finding half, and half of 66 is 33. But if you were uncertain, you could have done the division. Remember, Nancy belongs in the house. The donkey needs to stay outside because that's gross. We have dead mice smell bad. How many times can 2 go into 6? 3. We give ourselves a check. M stands for multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Check. Subtract. Check. Bring down. Bring down. Now we must go back to the first step because we know our answer will have 3 digits since our number on the, will have 2 digits since the number on the inside had 2 digits. So since all we've got on top is a 3, we know we're not done yet. Okay, we go back to the D. How many times can 2 go into 6? Last time I checked, it was still 3. Multiply 3 times 2. Subtract. Bring down. I've got nothing to bring down. I've got no remainder. So we know that this equals 33. Let's try 2 more. The first one we're going to look at is 4 2/5 times 7 1/2. We convert. That becomes 22/5. That becomes 15 halves. We like to make our life simple if we can, so we look to see if the numerators and denominators have any factors in common that they can be divided by. And in this case, again, happily, they do. The 2 and the 22 both share a factor 2. So we divide both of them by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Are we done? Of course not. We have a 5 and a 15. They share a factor of 5. So we can cross them both out. The 5 becomes a 1. The 15 becomes a 3 because 15 divided by 5 is 3. We multiply it out. And happily, this one ends up being 33 as well. That was just a happy coincidence, not intentional. Here we have 3 1/3 times 5 1/3. You cannot, to find this answer, just multiply the whole numbers and then the fractions independently. You must first convert. So, that process has not changed. 3 1/3 becomes 10 thirds. 5 1/3 becomes 16 thirds. We check to see if we can cancel it all. 3 are my only denominators, and neither 10 or 16 have 3 as a factor, so we have to continue from here. We end up with 160 ninths. Now we could try to figure out in our head what is 160 divided by 9, but in most cases it's easier to divide it out. Now let's put our little dead mice smell bad, and let's go. Remember, we ignore the 6 and the 0 for right now. We'll come back to them later. We first ask ourselves, how many times can 9 go into 1? And it can't. That was a quick trip right through our steps. When the first number is 0, we know we're going to be looking at it as 16. Okay, how many times can 9 go into 16? Well, we know 9 times 1 is 9, and 9 times 2 is 18, and that's too large, so it can only go in one time. Now we multiply. We leave the 0 alone. We're multiplying 1 times 9, which is 9. When we do our subtraction, we're left with 7. And now we bring down our 0. It's no longer a 7, now it's a 70. We go back to the first part, dividing. How many times can 9 go into 70? Well, let's do some thinking. We want to get close to 70, but not over. 9 times 8 will get us 72, but that's too big. So we're just going to go one less. 9 times 7. 9 times 7 is 63. I skipped a check mark, but we're caught up now. Okay, so 7 times 9 is 63. We're to the S, which means we're going to subtract. We're left with 7. Now bring down, oh, I've got nothing left to bring down, so that means I get to bring it up. My numerator is 7. My denominator is still the same as what it was to begin with, 9. So we know our answer is 17 7/9.